Good afternoon and good evening and good morning, everybody. This is another episode of The Week in Hand. Tonight is Sunday night, and it's just been announced yesterday and the day before, actually, that Dominic Cummings has sort of broke the lockdown rules.
Traveled 250 miles.
Drove 150 miles.
250 miles.
250 miles to his parents' house. And I've got John.
Because he had no alternative,
Yeah.
and he was using his instincts, as quoted by Boris Johnson today at the press briefing.
Yeah, so I've got Mr. John Brazier on, who's come on to discuss
Hello.
British politics in the whole, but mainly the issues that are going on right now with the lockdown and Dominic Cummings, because we've both become interested in this particular character. So, are you all right, John? How's it going anyway?
Yeah, I'm brilliant. Really good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
How are you coping with lockdown and has it affected you or has it not affected you that much?
Well, my day-to-day has been pretty much the same in terms of I used to go to work and come home and not really see anyone. And now I pretty much go to work and come home and don't really see anyone. But obviously it's affecting my family and stuff like that. And, there's the tensions there for the people that I care about. One of my sisters works for the NHS. My mum's a care worker. So obviously it's hitting my family in that way. So obviously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got them sort of stresses and tensions there.
So, man, I wanted to talk to you about this, right? Because once the Dominic Cummings thing went sort of national, you've been talking about him for ages. Yeah.
When did you first hear about him? Why don't you talk about when he first came on your radar?
Well, you put me onto him initially, but the thing is that you were talking about him back when sort of the Brexit thing was going on, and like years and years ago. And I sort of, you mentioned him to me, and I didn't really look into him or sort of understand who he was, as an individual. And then when this news broke, I thought, well, I'm not going to jump to any judgments about what's gone on initially because I don't know who he is. Let me find out a little bit more about who he is. And one thing, I watched a few YouTube videos. Basically, how I found out like what he was about, which I sent to you. But one thing I did notice what he was saying that basically politicians aren't really the correct type of people to be running the country because they're very egocentric and narcissistic in a way. But the other thing is which I wanted to talk to you about, sort of a bit personally about you, is that this certain mindset that doesn't use social media. Now, like, I've been sucked into the whole social media and the Instagram and the Facebooks and all that. I've been sucked in and I waste so much of my day looking at, the people's opinions and things.
Yeah.
But you in particular, it doesn't seem to have grabbed you. And he was saying, that like...
It hasn't. You know what I mean? I'm not immune to it. I'm really not. I'm not immune to the lure. I recognize the lure. Things for me like that it's kind of like a magic trick in that if you know how a magic trick's done and then you get shown the magic trick, well, there's no kind of... Whereas if you don't know and somebody shows you a magic trick, oh my God, you can be, and that's easily swept away. And things like social media, I was just lucky, just dumb luck that I came across the information that when I sort of looked at it, I was like, oh, look, that is pretty much true. So just things like how Facebook was used, by Cambridge Analytica and Dominic Cummings. I mean, are you aware of that? Things like that. As soon as I started to see that sort of thing was happening, I was like, whoa. And so I do, I am on Facebook, I am on Instagram, but only I've got profiles there to kind of see what my friends are doing and kind of sort of, pay attention a small amount. But I'm just too aware of how dangerous it is you can go on for hours about the sort of social, political manipulation aspect of it, but just things of like the addictive nature of it and how one of the first things I found out about social media, things like Instagram, Facebook, was it was mostly designed by psychologists as much as computer programmers. It was designed to be crack, absolute, to put crack addiction within you like we've never seen before, to play on your your dopamine hits and, things like that to try and get you addicted to it. And so once I recognized that, once you know what the magic trick is, you're like, whoa, you're not going to do that to me. So that's kind of why.
Yeah, of course. So the reason I mentioned that, just as a correlation between what's going on now, is Dominic Cummings particularly has been out of the limelight. Doesn't seem to be interested in being known as such.
No, absolutely, he doesn't know. He recognizes but that's not his place in this. He knows where and how he can operate strongest, and he can without anybody knowing who he is or what he does. He doesn't want anybody to know who and what he is. That's what Boris Johnson's for. The big mouthpiece. He's supposed to be the brains, not the face. And at the moment, the last couple of days, he's been the face, and that's the problem. Because of what he's done.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I thought this is exactly what he didn't want. He wanted to be behind the scenes, in the back room, being the brains of the operation, and almost as if Boris Johnson is the puppet of his architect. And that's why I've become so fascinated now with Dominic Cummings, because I'm like, this is all him. Everything we've been sort of like, especially like, because like I side left, like, left to centre, but especially like, because I've been like, the Conservatives, blah, 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 I don't agree with any of the policies. And then I watched this Dominic Cummings video about politics, and I'm like, he's fully aware of both the right and left's downfalls, and he's manipulating both.
For me, man, what he's very good at, or what he's very intelligent at, or what he's doing now, or what he's playing, the strengths he's playing to he's recognised the process fault of government. If you were to compare it to a machine, the way it's been designed is an old antiquated design that now doesn't hold up in the modern era. And he knows that from top to bottom. If you look at those, those videos you sent me, he's the one where he literally sits and explains how he manipulated and got Brexit over the line, just literally calmly, which again, I'm not either way. But when people say he didn't do it and he's just there saying, no, he did do it, that's why, that's the thing I don't really understand.
So just explain, sorry, just to take this all back, just explain to the audience and our audience around how you got interested in, first, the Brexit, because that's sort of what drew you into the political sort of British politics, and then how Dominic Cummings did what he did, and then go on to suggest what's happening now with the politics.
Okay, well, I'll start by saying, I'm no expert of politics. I'm just a normal layman guy, just the same as everybody else. I had a middling to zero interest in politics at the beginning, up until a couple of years ago when we started to hear this sort of campaign about leaving the EU. That was the first thing I heard. I heard about, we don't want unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. That was one thing that stuck out to me. So, that's right. Yeah, I agree with that. We don't want unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. 350 million, I heard what everybody else heard, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, there's no such thing as 350 million on the bus. That was a big one. It's like, okay, who did that? That was this guy called Dominic Cummings who ran the campaign Leave. And it went so that's sort of the first thing that got the interest.
What did you think of the whole the Brexit thing once you because you started investigating it, and you have a mind that will sort of investigate it to its nth degree until you understand each.
Well, there was a couple of things that stood out. One, take back control, 350 million for the NHS. So when these things started to come out that no, we weren't going to get that. Again, I'm not partisan either way. If we're going to leave, if that's the best thing, surely we can all get together and recognize that that's the best thing. If we're all going to get together, and if it's a bad thing, surely we can all see that it's a bad thing. But it got split into two groups, as Dominic Cummings said. He turned it into kind of a football match of us and them. He did the sneaky trick of you accuse them of what we're doing. So the essence of fake news. The essence of fake news is that thing there is fake news. Well, that thing there was true, and you saying it's fake news is the fake news. So you accuse them of what you're doing, and that was that was a very sneaky trick in the Brexit thing. Anything from the side of of the Leave campaign. You just accuse them of what you're doing, which is the lying, the manipulation. When it came out at the end, both sides were charged with overspending, manipulating the campaign. So all these sort of things sort of really piqued my interest there. When Boris Johnson said you can have your cake and eat it, that was a big one. I was like, I'm an adult. You know, when someone says you can have your cake and eat it, that's sort of something you should be. For me, that's that's something you tell a child. It's not something you tell an adult. So the more we look.
You were saying that you were heightened by the promises, which you understood the lies as such.
Well, at first, I absolutely believed the lie. I believed what I was told, the same as everybody else believed what they was told. It's just so when you sort of look a little bit deeper, you find there's no 350 million a week for the NHS. So at that point, you start saying, well, why is there not? But other people aren't asking those questions. They're just absolutely partisan and just go along with it. And that was the thing that kind of got me. It was first it was for the economy, and now nobody argues it's going to be better for the economy. There was a thing called Project Yellowhammer, Operation Yellowhammer, sorry, and that was to assess the damage or to assess the impact of doing a no-deal Brexit. And that wasn't published and then refused to be republished, and then it was leaked, and then it was said it was the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And how can it be that you've got two sides arguing this is going to be better, that's going to be better, when surely the facts are the facts, but it seems the facts get obscured and hidden. And this is all things where I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this is not the way politics used to be, you know, so up until about 5 years ago. And it started with, I mean, I can give you loads of examples. More recent example, the 50,000 nurses, where there was 19,000 nurses being kept, as they said, and 31 new nurses being added. But that was 50,000 nurses. In all the interviews, it's 50,000 more nurses. You know, to the point where you had Piers Morgan and his sidekick saying, if we had one more new presenter, how many presenters? That's 3 new presenters. Well, it's not. There's 2 and 1 more. You know, it got absolutely ridiculous, man. This sort of
the thing is with Dominic Cummings, which really piqued my interest, and this is where I sort of wanted to speak to you about it, because you're the best person I know that I can speak to about it, is I was, and I'm going to play a devil's advocate here a little bit, John, because I was under the impression that he's a manipulator and he's morally corrupt, and everything the Conservatives do is for their own sake and for their own gain. And then I listened to them speeches, the one about him, how he ran the Leave campaign and how he did it. And he initially said when we went into Europe, he was against it, and it's against his belief that we are better within Europe. And whether that's right or wrong, he believes that, and he was able to implement change within a nation.
Oh, yeah.
He was able to implement change within the nation, and there were people bringing him up to do it. So it's like, who is that sort of man that can?
It's sort of like a fixer, almost like a global fixer. Yeah, we need you to fix this for us. Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's fair. That, in the essence, is the thing that piqued my interest. It's almost, you know, I don't like tinfoil hat conspiracies or anything like that, but this seems like it was something other than what they said it was. You know, like I say, all the original arguments now don't get argued. It's now a new set of arguments. Anything that, say, Operation Yellowhammer, that why can't you? If it was bad, why can't we say, okay, it's bad, but this is what we're going to do? You know, it just seemed like.
Well, and obviously, did you hear what he said about that? Because he was like, the promises that were made should have been kept. In his belief, he states that people don't really understand the single market. There's very
not at all. Do you? I don't. You know, exactly. I've looked at it for hours. Hardly understand any part of it.
This is what scares me, man, because you, again, another like praise to you is that you were the first person that introduced the Dunning-Kruger effect to me. And since you did that, I've been very, very heightened to how little I actually know about certain subjects. It's just like, a light bulb went on, and it was like, right, no, I have blind spots. The more you're aware of them blind spots.
Well, you know what I was saying about magic tricks?
Yeah.
Right. So one of the magic tricks, and these are the things that just made me go, what is going on here? So you know what I said about accusing them of what you're doing? So when the leave side, and again, I am not partisan about staying. I'm not partisan about leaving. Whatever is the best thing for the most amount of people over time, that's what we should do. The things that took my interest are when these weird tricks start being played. So a good example of accusing them of what you're doing, when legitimate things were brought up from the leave side, it's Project Fear. Project Fear. You're lying. You're lying. We'll give it a name. We'll label the lie and put everything under that blanket. That's a technique. You know what I mean? You just label it something else, something you hate. It's them, it's us and them. You split into two groups. That's an actual mechanism that you can, and that was used. You know what I mean? And other mechanisms we use, like targeted Facebook advertisements and things like that. And to me, it's like, for want of a better word, it's kind of like a mild hacking of a culture or of a group of people, just enough to twist a political campaign the way you wanted it to go. It wasn't, here are the facts that are good, and so we can all agree, and let's go and do that thing. Yeah. And this is where, these are the things that piqued my interest.
So explain in your words, man, the Cambridge Analytica and how data is used in that way. And also, if you can just elaborate on another subject, which is what the Dunning-Kruger effect actually is, and how that's how that implements into all this as well.
Okay, the Dunning-Kruger effect, put most simply, is kind of the less. If you take, so one extreme, the good version of the Dunning-Kruger effect is, say, like a NASA scientist, someone who knows absolutely loads about their given subject, but they are part of that intrinsic gaining of the knowledge is the fact that they don't think they know everything. They know enough to know they don't know everything, and so they constantly are checking on themselves. They are sort of empathetic and humble in their approach, which self-perpetuates the learning and keeps them sort of on point and precise. And then you've got the other end of the Dunning-Kruger effect, whereas the less you know about something, the more you know, which is then sort of in a character base of, you sort of become arrogant and make excuses for the gaps in your knowledge. And
why is it dangerous? Because from what I understand about it is that the Dunning-Kruger effect is the people that are oblivious to the gaps in their knowledge are the ones that are more forthright with, I know this is...
Yeah, absolutely.
And they tend to go a little bit further as well sometimes.
Well, that sort of feeds into what Dominic Cummings was saying is the problem with modern politics today, is the people that are getting anywhere have to be a good speaker, have to be good at saying words, and have to be good at defending a position, whether they're right or wrong. They don't have to be somebody who's actually good at getting things done. They need to have sort of an ego and a persona, and that's what they need to work on, as opposed to being competent and efficient. And so that's sort of one of the main problems. It's modern politics has been sort of infiltrated by people who kind of are just styling it out.
Yeah.
Like Boris Johnson.
It seems like the divide and conquer, the team-based thing, is had a real detrimental. Well, I see it more on social media than I do in sort of the real world as such. But it seems like it's definitely had its planted its seed, and it's sort of spread, and now everything is like black and white. There's no sort of crossover. And this is where this argument about him going to his parents because he was worried about the 4-year-old child that he has, Dominic Cummings goes to his parents' house to safeguard his own kid. And that's like, there's one side, if we're saying black and white, that's saying, well, this is completely against what the policy was saying, this is absolutely ridiculous, we want his job. And then there's the other side that are saying he's just safeguarding his kid. He's made one, he's gone to his parents' house and self-isolated there so he could have childcare if they both got particularly ill. And for once, and this is weird, man, and maybe you can correct me, but I feel like I'm sitting on the side of, there's nothing wrong with that. He's a super genius who knows the logistic and statistical consequences of his actions. I don't see he's really put anybody other than his own parents in harm's way. why are we calling for this guy to be sacked? And like, you know, like why is the population wanting his head as such when realistically he's this at this moment in time he's the sort of person
Right.
you need, you know, in a weird way, because you wouldn't want to sack your chief advisor right when we're going to go into a recession. Would you? Like,
so as you've seen, as loads of people are calling for his head, you saw today loads of so David Michael Gove tweeted, Rishi Sunak tweeted, I think Boris Johnson tweeted as well, I think Home Secretary Priti Patel, I think she tweeted support. They all tweeted support. So basically you've had it kind of, they've all split into two. You know what I mean? Within the Conservative Party, they've all really, really over the last 24 hours split off into two groups. Do you know Hardman Steve Baker? I'm Hardman Steve Baker. Do you remember? So he's like one of your most ardent Brexiters. Dominic Cummings at the moment seems to be, for want of a better word, the kind of mastermind, you know, at the heart of Brexit at the moment. Yeah, he's gone in for it. So this is another, you know, mysterious thing about Brexit. Not even all the Brexiters could agree on the Brexit that you want, because you think those two would be covering each other. If they were being, you know, partisan and covering each other's backs, you'd think that he'd be covering his back. But no, he was out there gunning for him today. So, you know.
Where do you stand with it? Do you think it was... I mean, it's such a weird debate and
it's a complicated question. Like, you know what you're asking? Do I think he did wrong, or do I think he should go? Or
well, you're both. What do you think? Do you think he should be fired?
Okay, so government scientist Neil Ferguson, he resigned because when he was seeing his funny woman, Dr. Catherine Calderwood, she resigned. You know, the Scottish Health Secretary, when she went to her house. Now, he was basically seeing his funny woman. She went on holiday. So they're not things that stand up against scrutiny. So you know, supposedly he was at some other place as well, some other
Castle or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So has he done what they did? Yeah, has he?
No, so, I don't think he has. I think
so. This is one side of the argument, or you know, but also you just said he's, you know, how clever he is. He's also clever enough to know that if he just wants to go and do things, that he could use his kids as an excuse within reason and use that line to protect himself.
You think that might be like a double bluff and manipulation? I think, man, I honestly think about it. The Neil Ferguson one.
Did he right? Boris Johnson today said, man, he said he had that Dominic Cummings had no alternative and he used his instincts. So Dominic Cummings, being who he is in London, did he have no alternative? Could he not have got a nanny and paid for somebody? Could he not have got somebody over? Has he got? I don't know. See, I'm just saying. What I'm saying is that's what Boris Johnson said. He said that Dominic Cummings had no alternative. So if you believe that he had no alternative but to drive 250 miles and he had no alternative but to do that, then I'd say yeah. But if you don't believe and you think that him with his financial resources and connections couldn't, but then again, if he chose to do what he did, that's something else again, is it?
This is how I extrapolated it, right? The Neil Ferguson thing is different, right? Because he was the one that was pro lockdown, pro all this. So it was his architecture and his matrix that predicted all this and almost put us in this position. Did put us in this position because he said 500,000 people could die, and the predictive model is this is very dangerous, that we need to stop the economy and ramp up the NHS. And then, so it was his idea to implement lockdown, and then he goes and breaks his own idea by going to see having an affair, which to me is like there's morals all over the place there, which I don't agree with, and I think he was absolutely wrong to do that, and I think he should have resigned because so that's where I stand with Neil Ferguson. But the Cummings one is right. He's a mastermind. Think about it. If you're in a hotspot, because London was the hotspot of this pandemic, right? And you think, right, this could go one or two ways now. Our hospitals could come overrun, and me or my partner may need hospital, and we've got this 4-year-old. Obviously, the risk is here. Why don't I just fucking move?
The thing is, he was already symptomatic, or his wife was already symptomatic, wasn't
his wife was, so would you want your wife being treated in a hospital that was overrun with COVID, or possibly further out? treated in a
No.
like a community hospital.
No, not at all. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I completely see that. But as you're setting off, how can you guarantee you're not going to have to pull over at a service station or somewhere else that's going to be packed, and which is the reason why you're supposed to stay? You know what I mean? Because to stop that spread, what was it? Stay at home, save lives, protect the NHS or whatever.
Yeah, but
he's the one who started that. Was he doing that when he did that?
But also the fact that he was never pro-lockdown. He was never pro-lockdown. He never wanted that. All he wanted.
True, but when the lockdown comes in, you can't. Yeah, but I didn't want it anyway. He's also the chief advisor. In terms of. So is the other thing. So why should anybody else now not just do what he did? Because people weren't doing that. That's the implication. The spirit of the agreement was you couldn't do that, and he did that. But also, when it's come out as well, he had the opportunity to say, "Oh, yeah, I was wrong," or. But what he said was, practically do one, to the reporters. He said, I'm not supposed. It's not about how it looks. Don't care how it looks. It's about how it is, sort of thing. He could have. So he's obviously not bothered about how it looks. He's not bothered about sort of public opinion. Which is sort of the main thing. Public opinion's what's been keeping everybody in lockdown. It's not. It's we're policed by consent.
Yes, he doesn't. I don't think, but obviously, like, imagine if you're the chief advisor and you've advised something, and like some of it's coming back now. Whereas, like, if we went,
do you think he thinks it's one set of rules for one and another set of rules for another? Do you think he thinks that or not?
But I think
right there, and that's it. And it's whether he can or not. This is because that's to the heart of it. It's can he? So can he get away? Is it? Because he thinks it is.
Yes.
You know it, and I, I'd be.
I do totally think that. I do totally think that, but I think he's like.
So it's just whether it is. No, I don't know whether it is or not. Well, it seems to be.
Of course it is.
It seems to be. Yeah, it seems to be.
Think about who he is. He's not like. It's not like everybody says this. It's like, it's one rule for them and another rule for us. Well, yes, they're elite people. He is an elite person. It's like, it's not a fair world.
No, it never has been. No, it never has been. It never will. Yeah, there's never been 2 minutes in a row where it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So you put Dominic Cummings in a conversation with just either of us two and start talking about any subject, and he will be like that much more above us in knowledge.
Someone like him, he's had sort of the enriched experiences, hasn't he? He was smart, and he's been to good schools, and then he's been around other smart people. You know what I mean? And sort of smart.
Yeah.
He's never had a time where he wasn't around.
So now I'm getting on, like, you go on Facebook and you see we need him fired and all this, and it's like, hold on, this is one of the.
That is, but that is again the partisan Brexit thing. If you were to go and find, but that's true both sides. If you were to go and find everybody now who thinks he shouldn't be fired and ask them how they voted on Brexit, they'll be like, we need to leave. And if you were to find everybody who practically, that's why Steve Baker, things like him, was such a surprise, because he is your most hardened Brexiter, and he's saying he should go. And this is where,
I don't think. I think I honestly think.
I don't, man. Right. Sorry. So actually, I've not even really stated my opinion. I don't think he should go. I don't think he should go right now, purely because of he's the one that's he's integral to what's being set up and what is being put in motion, and it's hard to tell how far it would or how much worse it would get. Things are unstable enough, basically. I don't think for the sake of sort of political stability after this coronavirus, and we're leaving all at the same time.
Yeah,
it seems to be. I don't know better than anybody. I'm just an average guy who's took a slight interest in what's gone on in the past few years in this crazy country.
Yeah, it seems that calling for jobs, man. It's like, look, right. Obviously, it's not his livelihood because he's really rich, right? But somebody at work said this to me, because if you put a complaint in against a college, right? It's like, where do you want that to go? Because if you think about it, you're fucking with their livelihood for one.
Yeah.
Let's give Dominic Cummings the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. My wife's ill. I don't know if I'm going to get ill. I've got a 4-year-old. There's let's say
nobody about. Yeah, there's nobody about. No friends about. I've got to go. That's where I need to go.
Yeah, that's where I need to go. Mind mapped it. Let's just do it. I'll take the fallout later.
Yeah.
Whatever. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. It's like that. Then it's just common sense. If for instance, if I was
common sense.
well, go on.
Common sense. That's what I've been saying this week. You need to use common sense. But common sense to a serial killer is to go and kill everybody in the room. That's what's common sense to them. You know, a common sense to like an empathetic weakling is to be nice to everybody, whether they're horrible or not. Do you know what I mean? It's like no. Common sense, no.
Yeah.
You know,
so if you're a super intelligent intellect, like high level, high performer, your sense of what is best to do. Like, you know, like who's
but also, man, also though, people like that also have massive blind spots, you know what I mean? Just as people and as personalities. So it's like he may be, because one thing you could probably say about him sort of without question is he doesn't prioritize empathy over, say, getting things done. You know, he'll happily fire anybody on the spot. He doesn't care, you know, he's not bothered about people's emotions in general. So you could argue that maybe that fed into his decision making when he thought about this, and that's part of the problem, you know, is that he doesn't possess the right amount of empathy to be a balanced individual, considering how smart he is, because he can see the things he should do, whether it's right or not, and doesn't necessarily have the empathy to balance out the things that he should do. You know what I mean? Whereas somebody else isn't necessarily better than him. They just don't see the options that are out there the way Dominic Cummings' intellect recognizes the options out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that I think is the thing that I don't really, or that I mistrust about the guy, is that his intelligence far outweighs his sense of empathy. And, you know, good leaders have sort of a reasonable balance of both. But then maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe he is the right amount.
I was like, because you was like saying, like, picture him as this sort of like evil mastermind, and then I listened to some of his talks, and I sort of
only when I say that, I don't necessarily think that. I'm not saying that I think he is. I'm saying that that's what he's recognized as. Do you know what I mean? He's recognized in the political space as a sort of this mastermind, political genius, guerrilla politician who's excellent at taking a sledgehammer to a certain situation and getting an outcome that nobody expected. That's what he's proven to be. But there's nobody thinks that, say, he would be a great overseeing political manager in times of peace where everything was sorted. There's no sort of evidence of that, and nobody kind of thinks that he has that sort of benevolent part of his personality. You know, like Churchill. You know, Churchill. Everyone raves about Churchill, and he didn't win the election after the war. You know, 2 months later, after the war ended, he lost the election by the biggest landslide ever because he didn't tell anybody what he wanted to do next. Labour came out with a better option about what was going to happen, and you know, he won after that. But the point is the guy for wartime is usually not, or never has been in history really been the guy for peacetime. So he was brought, and this is sort of what people who are trying to oust him at the moment. That's one of their arguments, is that, look, he was brilliant. He's done it. He's taken a sledgehammer to it. He's got Brexit out. It's going to happen now. There's no real way. It's bound in law. Let's get him out. We got what we wanted out of him.
Yeah. So obviously, just slightly changing subject about that. So, like,
whatever you want, man. Whatever you want.
Still on the sort of political spectrum. It's like now we are looking like we're going to be coming out of the lockdown eventually, possibly in a couple of months, but we're going to hit a recession. And I'm thinking we need people like him who are sort of a bit ruthless, but sort of understand, hub and spoke systems, economics, geoeconomics, understand the problems of the left, the problems of the right. We need them sort of people, which I think he is now. I'm not a conservative, but I think he's.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm honestly, man. I want what's best for the right amount of people over the right amount of time. What flagged me up about all this nonsense is that nothing seemed to be what it said on the tin. And when you try and talk to people about it, they just start screaming slogans at you. This seemed, like I say, seemed like some, not a mass hacking, but just enough of a sort of cultural nudge to manipulate a situation to get an outcome that they wanted. That's what it seems to be.
So what do you think is going to happen post lockdown? Do you think, because obviously the Brexit thing has just gone completely off the table, nobody's talking about it at all.
Well, just the other day it was coming out that there is going to be paperwork between here and Northern Ireland. You know, and they said there wasn't, that we know there won't be any paperwork from there coming here, but there will be here going there. So, you know, it's these little sort of nuggets do keep dropping, but I agree with you. It's just been completely drowned out. Like, everything's been drowned out. There was a mass shooting in Canada, wasn't there? 22 dead a couple of weeks ago. It's like, that wasn't, that would have normally rocked the whole world, and it didn't at all.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I do think that. And I think I like the paranoia of what we're about to step into, as in like the new world, we're stepping out of lockdown and into whatever we've got left of the economy.
Mm.
Yeah, is a big scare for everyone. So like what sort of finances and economics, what's do you sort of predict happening?
Well, again, I'm just a guy. I'm no like, I'm no financial expert or even financial moderate, anything like that. But all I know is that over the, all I know is a recession is sort of classified as a recession when you get 2 quarters. So that's 2 lots of 3 months when you're in negative growth. I know that after the first quarter of this year, so that's 12 weeks. After 1 week of lockdown, we were in negative growth of 2%. So you could argue that 2% came from the last week, but you could argue we were going plus how much before and then we went. So, and now we're going into the second quarter of 12 weeks of lockdown. So it's going to be the biggest recession in history, I think. So, but what does that mean? Because it's also in a situation that we've never seen before. It's not that there weren't jobs; it's there's people crying out to go and do it. It's that we can't because of the virus. So as soon as they unlock everything, it's how quickly do we get back? How quickly a new job's created? Thing, situations like that, and it's how far one ebbs and how far one flows.
Do you think the Conservatives have dealt with it right through the finance schemes? And do you think? Obviously, we don't know if
Yes,
Labour.
yes and no. Yes and no. It to be fair and to be fair to everybody, we were completely caught unawares, and it's become obvious how unawares they were when this all happened. They didn't know what they were doing. We didn't have the necessary stockpiles of PPE, things like that. We didn't have the necessary systems, mechanisms, financial and political, to immediately give out money. This whole thing with furlough, all the stipulations and all the rest of it is purely because they're trying to protect themselves from being scammed. So that's how powerful the capability is to still scam this country. And which feeds what the way that they did the furlough, in the same way that the way the advice has been about PPE has been fed by or been informed by the amount of PPE they've got, not the correct information. They've had to sort of crisis manage the whole way. So in terms of what they've done, they didn't pause the economy. The economy's been sort of limping along and staggered to a sort of slow death. So it wasn't a pause on an economy, it was a slow death of an economy that they're trying to restart back up. So that obviously could have been handled in a way that was better for everybody. It depends how far you want to go and how deep you want to go. I mean, for me, currency is no different to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is worth something because we all agree it is. That's no difference to finances anymore. So in terms of how much money they want to pump in and the consequences, you can do what you want to do if you change the law and create legislation. And it seems like in the same way that criminals sometimes are way ahead of technology and there isn't laws in place to catch a criminal doing what they're doing until the laws are, and then they stop what they're doing, there doesn't seem to be the political mechanisms and legislation in place to immediately get finance to people in times of crisis like now. So they had to kind of pick and choose. So in terms of the broken status quo that they found themselves in, I think they've done from their perspective within reason what they thought they could do. But how many countless millions of people are going without money right now? The cut-off point for businesses 51,000. So you can have a couple who have separate businesses earning 49,000 pounds each business. They both get furloughed for 30k a year, so they've got 60k going in their house. You can have two other couple who earn 51,000 pounds a year and nothing goes into their bank accounts. You've got these two households there, difference is 2k a year, yet now one's on 60k a year through the furlough equivalent and the other's on nothing. So you can that's a tiny little, there's thousands of cracks in this system. So am I grateful that it's there? Yeah, absolutely. It's hats off to them for what they did. They moved heaven and earth to make it work, but it just shows the sort of antiquated political financial mechanisms that they have in place in our country and all over the world.
Do you think because I struggled, this is one that I've proper struggled with. Do you think the Conservatives are not in it for the common man. Like, you know,
In terms of what? In terms of how they dealt with the pandemic, or in terms of in general, or?
well, just in general, do you think they're sort of like what's the word? Like they extort everybody
Right.
else for their own gains. You know, like opportunists. That's the word. Do you think they're
Yeah.
opportunists?
So, in terms of sort of how modern finances work and the global marketplace, things like that, the free market, capitalism in general, communism works for 15 years and everybody gives up because they're sick of it because they're all getting the same. And capitalism, if you will run a capitalist scenario over enough 100 years, all the money ends up in one place. Of course it does. And we've witnessed that speeding up over the past 2 decades. So, whose fault is that? Well, rich people get richer, they get lower interest, they've got more options. Unless they're stupid. Well, if they were stupid, they wouldn't have made money in the first place. Every now and then you get a lottery winner, but then they've lost the money, and that goes back into the economy. But your people who start your businesses and then make your money, well, they make more money, and more money makes more money, and money breeds money, and it's cheaper to do business the more money you've got. And so that was always gonna. So how do you counterbalance that now that we recognise that this thing, like I say, one of them lasted 15 years for me. Communism and capitalism lasts how many hundreds of years before it all ends up in one person's pot. A good example of that was even in our lifetime when we were little, companies didn't just buy companies. Now something Amazon do if they want to get into a business, and they want to buy the number one person in that business, they'll advertise they're going to buy number two, and the stock drops of number one, they go in and just muscle them and get what they want.
Yeah.
When Facebook were in trouble from Instagram and worried they were going to lose it, they just bought it.
Yeah.
So
Do you think
that's not the world.
you think the conservative sort of political agenda is just based around in a capitalist structure, and
Well, if you look at who they are, for the last sort of 20 years, it's been very, very wealthy, middle and upper class people. So I think they're just kind of looking after their own people. But obviously, that's not everybody. You've got different people fighting for different things. So there's always going to be good people there fighting for sort of more financial equality. But you're also going to get people trying to line their own nests and fight their own position. I think that's a lot of what Brexit was about, trying to make this country a sort of more deregulated place that favours bosses starting up businesses and not regulations that protect sort of workers. And that was a big thing for me that sort of made me think, well, you kind of talking workers into selling away their own rights, which I couldn't really understand.
Yeah, I think you had because we've talked at length about the Brexit being a belief system, and like how people are manipulated, as we were saying before, with like Cambridge Analytica and this sort of mass manipulation, and then you find out who the guys are behind it, and as you were saying, one of them is Dominic Cummings, and now all of a sudden Dominic Cummings is in the limelight, but nobody, I don't think many people really know who he is or what he's about. And I think out of all of them at the moment, he's the most interesting because he scares me with how knowledgeable he is and how well he can manipulate a situation. And I don't know whether I admire it or not. And that's what scares me. He's like, do I like this guy? I'm not a conservative. I'm like massively against all conservatives because I've always thought they were, to do with the propagation of themselves, and they're looking out for their people, not the common people, and increasing this sort of social gap within society, whereas the haves have and the have-nots have nothing. And now I've listened to him, I'm like, he's fully aware of all this, and he's
absolutely.
He's manipulating his world view to what he wants. And like how can you be mad at that? If how can you be mad at somebody? Why not him? Why not? If he's able to do that, why not?
As I've said, man, is it going to be something that's better for the most amount of people over the most amount of time, or is it something that's just going to keep the divide going, where the rich get richer, there's a bigger divide, which I don't think ends well, or maybe it does.
No, it definitely doesn't end well. But it's like, if you're like, this is sort of where the Dunning-Kruger comes in, man. If you're not aware enough to realise that there's people that are more intelligent, better educated, and have a hold of what you see, what you do, how you can act, then your whatever your belief system is dictated by them. And that's where the separation comes from. It's like, so as long as we're all divided and we all have a view on it, it's like, right, fuck, we're not going to go anywhere. We need to be like, right, okay, there has to be a middle ground, which I think, and again, I don't know hardly anything about politics, but I think the middle ground came from the old Labour, where you had Tony Blair, who was very centrist.
Yeah.
So the millionaires.
He was kind of a conservative in Labour skin, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which we don't have now. But man, it's been great talking to you about it. We could talk for hours, you know me.
I know, never ending.
Yeah, it's never ending. But I just wanted to do it tonight and today, especially because it's quite heightened in the news at the moment, and I think people are jumping on the bandwagon of this guy's done the wrong thing, and maybe there's more to him that we don't understand, and maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But whether he hasn't or not, I don't think it should be his job, because I think we need him right now, personally. But I don't know what you think on that subject.
Well, man, I think in terms of like what he's good at, he's very good at breaking down a situation into its individual components, breaking them down to the smallest, drilling down right to the very base of the minutiae and analysing how it is and why it is. And then once you can do that, you can break it down and you can change it into what you want it to be. But no, I've lost my.
No, it's all right. And what do you think? You think he's got skills, but you think he's actually in the wrong for breaking the sort, because he is again a public figure. He's a public figure. Do you actually think he's in the wrong? Would you call for his job or not?
Like I say, right now, no. Because like I say, he's very good for process changing, for analysing politics and changing it into something else. He's very good at that, and he can do that. But there's something else that he turns it into. Is it going to be something better? Because if it is, why can't he sit everybody down and say, "Here's the plan"? So you see what I mean? That's the thing.
Why?
Or has he?
Sorry, just to play devil's advocate on this.
Yeah.
This is his belief that it is better, right?
But what's better?
He thinks obviously being out of Europe is better, and he didn't believe the lockdown was right, and he has a view on things, but he's only one person, and no matter how much pull he has, there is other factors. So I think he totally believes that his viewpoint is right, because most people do anyway, but it's whether or not it's right for his circle, or whether it's right for the whole country. And the more I listen to him, man, and this is where I was saying, I'm not sure if I've changed my mind on it. The more I listen to him, the more I'm like, he's fully aware of all the problems. He's fully aware of left,
absolutely,
right problems. It's not like
I'm not sure if he'll be able to get through the political minefield from A, of where he is now, to B, of his vision of the better way that everything should work. I don't know if he will be able to navigate from A to B without sort of the political system getting in the way. I don't know if he'll be able to change it before the broken way that it is stops him from making it be less broken, if that makes sense. But again, this thing that, we're talking about fixing, him being this evil genius and all the rest of it, but he had the weakest Labour opposition that there's ever been. There was nobody except Jerry. There's a lot of other things that have gone his way, if you know what I mean. He's been very, very lucky.
Yeah. But anyway, man, it's been nice talking to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
I will definitely catch you soon. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Thank you very much for doing this, man.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.